If Jesus Christ isn't a God, if he was just a man who lived 2,000 years ago, would his story still have relevance for us today? The answer is yes, and I'm going to explain this for a minute. Because one of the core issues of the ministry of the man, Jesus, revolved around debt. Debt is obviously a very important subject for us today. You look at the U.S. federal debt, it's around 37 trillion. You look at, and I wrote these things down so that I wouldn't forget them. You look at public debt, public U.S. debt, what most of you out there watching this hold. It's about $18 trillion. Corporate debt is about $14 trillion. Total global debt is north of $300 trillion. That is an astounding number. There is also a number that is never going to be paid back. I mean, we're fooling ourselves. You wonder why we even bother tracking this stuff. And that's where the story of the man named Jesus is actually kind of interesting and has some relevance for us today. So 2,000 years ago, there is this man going around in Galilee preaching. I'm going to call him Yeshua. Okay, I'm probably pronouncing it badly, but that was his real name. Jesus is a translation, and a translation it comes out different versions of these stories. In English, it becomes Jesus, but it was Yeshua. His name was Yeshua. And let's say most of what the sort of biographical information we have, let's just say it's accurate. So there was a carpenter named Yeshua who was going around and he was preaching and he was saying a lot of things that were obviously very incendiary. He went to a gathering, a temple, in his hometown of Nazareth, and he declared a year of the Lord's favor. The people were so upset about this that they dragged him out to a high hill and they were going to throw him off of it. Why would they do that? Now look, I agree. I understand that a lot of you out there, especially if you're Christians, if you believe in the stories, if you believe that Jesus is your Lord and Savior, you are disagreeing with what I'm saying right now and how I'm characterizing it and building it. And I understand that, and that's okay. But if you're not, if you are somebody who does not believe those things, there is a different story in the Gospels that you might be able to get something out of. So Yeshua goes to this gathering. He goes to the temple on the whatever day, Sunday, I suppose they went. And he declares a year of the Lord's favor, and the people get mad at him, and he gets a little indignant too, and they drag him out to a hill, and they're going to throw him off a cliff. Why? Why would they do that? This year of the Lord's favor, it was a sort of obscure Hebrew law that declared that every 50 years you basically erased debts. Debt was a little different back then. It wasn't just money. It was property. It was bondage. It was servitude. It was a Hebrew law that every 50 years you had a year of the Lord's favor. You had a year where you wiped the slate clean. You wiped out debts. And this was a version of an even more ancient law that existed across Mesopotamia. When money was still a kind of a new thing, what people realized was that you had these debts, and these debts tended to grow. And they tended to grow and grow and grow beyond the control of anyone to repay them all. Nobody could ever repay them all. And a lot of people lost their property because of it. They lost their farms. They got sold into servitude, into bondage. That's where the word comes from. And they came up with a mechanism to counteract this. And it was in Mesopotamia, it was called an amargi. It was debt forgiveness. It was blanket debt forgiveness. This had existed for a couple of thousand years across the Near Middle East. By the time of Yeshua, it had fallen out of favor. And what he was saying was, we need to bring this back. Because what it creates is an extremely unbalanced system. You have a small creditor class that really has most of the wealth, and you have a gigantic debtor class that has none of the wealth. And that, to Yeshua, was an extremely unfair situation, and he was trying to change that. I'll ladle something else onto this, which makes it very, very interesting. At the same time that this rabble-rousing carpenter is going around Galilee proclaiming this year of the Lord's favor, something is happening in Rome that shakes the empire to its knees. It's a financial crisis. In the year 33 AD, Rome had a financial crisis that was every bit as shocking as our crisis in 2008. Banks closed their doors, there were bank runs, there was a liquidity freeze, there was a property crash, all of it. The Roman Empire was on the financial brink of ruin, and you had this guy down in Galilee proclaiming debt forgiveness. 33 AD, Jesus goes to Jerusalem for Passover, he goes to the temple, and he attacks the temple. And this is important to understand about the temple. Temples at that time were not just houses of worship. They were economic engines. There was no separation of church and state. The church was the state. Kings, emperors, politicians, they all derived their power from the temple, from the church. That was where everything flowed out of. The temple was the economic center of the city-state. Yeshua goes into that temple and he throws out everybody. This is the famous story of him expelling the money changers. But think about it in the context of what I'm telling you, what he was demanding, what was happening in Rome, and he's going after the economic center of Jerusalem, of Judea. Goes in, chases out the money changers, brings in his people, they take over the temple. This is Occupy Wall Street 2,000 years ago. They have now, they probably have destroyed all the records. They probably have taken all the money that was in there. They have upended the economic life of Jerusalem. They are threatening the Roman Empire at a time when the Roman Empire is undergoing a severe financial crisis. So what do you think they do? Well, of course, they get him, they try him, and they execute him. That is what they did. They killed the man for asking for debt relief at a time when society was extremely unbalanced. And if you don't think that there is a story in there for you to take out of that today, then I guess you really shouldn't bother reading the rest of this book. But if you think there's something that you could take out of it, then absolutely I would then absolutely I would say you should read my book. Comes out July 22nd. You can order it online now. You can go to Goodreads. There is there's a giveaway. 25 free copies will be given out if you sign up this month. Thanks for watching.